Hello there, people of the internet. I'm taking cover. We have some weather coming in, and I'm out here with a couple of different rifles that I was just kind of playing around with, and I was thinking about what video I felt like doing next. And I figured I'd go ahead and make this video. This is going to be like more of a discussion video more than an actual range video of me having fun. I'll go ahead and splice in some, range footage of me shooting some guns because people love to see me shooting guns. But I was out here with my Arisakas. I got my 7.7 Jap Arisaka right here. But this right here is not really what pointed me towards this topic. I have my 6.5 Jap Type 38, obviously been sporterized. I keep it sporterized because I like the length of the barrel right there, and it makes for good compensation jokes, and it's just really funny. And the length of the barrel is not any real longer than the length of the barrel of other long rifles of this time period, but because the stock has been cut down so short, the barrel just looks so much longer than it actually is. And the rifle is just so lightweight, so comfortable. I'm taking it hunting this season. It's stupidly accurate. 6.5 Jap, very, very light recoil. More than adequate to handle the 120-pound deer that we have around here in North Florida. This would make an excellent, excellent hunting rifle for this area, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm not unsporterizing this rifle, at least not yet. I plan to do that in the future because this rifle is in beautiful condition. The bore, absolutely excellent. We have an intact mum on this thing. It is functional. This right here makes a fantastic rifle in general. But I was running some 6.5 Jap earlier today, and I was amazed at how similar it is to the 6.5 Carcano. I have my 6.5 Carcano. This is the Troop Special carbine. By Troop Special, it's not like, Troop Special, like they're special people. It's more like people that were not directly on the front lines, fighting, the enemy, but they still wanted to have some sort of rifle for defensive purposes. These aren't really accurate out, beyond 300 yards or so, or 300 meters, one of those two things, because the barrels have been cut off in the 1891 Carcanos. They had gain twist rifling. You cut that down, the bullets don't stabilize very well in these rifles. But that being said, I don't shoot out past, 100 yards, let alone 300 yards. And this right here is like one of my all-time favorite rifles. If these rifles did not hit so high, this would be my all-time favorite rifle. This rifle at 100 yards hits about 24 inches high, and I just kind of like learned where the holdover is with it, but it's not the best solution, especially whenever you're hunting, because you have a very small window of, aim point that you want to make in order to make a humane kill. That's more difficult to do whenever you're having to do holdover in Kentucky winded with a rifle like this. But besides that, this rifle, thank you, Kevin! This rifle is incredibly lightweight and incredibly comfortable, and I absolutely adore this rifle. I'm likely going to get one of the rifles that was made from scratch into a carbine version like this, and it doesn't have the issues that the gain twist rifling cut down barrel would have, but even with those issues, I'm not noticing any real significant decreasing accuracy because of the ranges that I actually shoot at. But while I was over here looking at these rifles, like thinking about them, I was like, how can I compare these two rifles? And I'm likely going to make a video on that later on, but I don't have any 6.5 Carcano ammunition. I'm working on getting myself a set of reloading dies so I can reload the brass that I have for the 6.5 Carcano, but until that happens, I can't manage to make that video. I'm sure that I could, but it's just more fun whenever I have ammunition to run through the rifles, so that'll come at a later point in time. But while I was sitting here looking at these rifles, I was talking to a buddy of mine. I was actually talking to him over the phone here, and I was talking about my 6.5 rifles, and he was like, oh, you got yourself a 6.5 Creedmoor. Glad to see you're finally coming around to the next cutting edge, the next wave of cutting edge technology. And the 6.5 Creedmoor is definitely blowing basically everything out of the water, ballistically speaking. And I was like, no, I don't have a 6.5 Creedmoor over here, young man. Don't you belittle me like that. I have a 6.5 Carcano and a 6.5 Jap that I'm playing around with. And he was like, well, I've never heard of those. And whenever he had said that, I called him a filthy degenerate from a generation of uncultured swine, not hearing about 6.5 Jap and Carcano. What are they? Are they obscure calibers nowadays? Yeah. Are they from, you know, regimes that no longer exist? Okay, perhaps. Are they from rifles that haven't been made in like 80 years now? Yeah, I guess. Are they rifles that you can't really find ammunition for all that easily? I mean, yeah. Okay, so you haven't heard of 6.5 Japan Carcano. Fine. Whatever. But this guy hasn't heard of 6.5 Japan Carcano. Carcano, however it is that you want to pronounce that. But we were talking, and he thinks that 6.5 Creedmoor is the absolute way to go. And we were talking about the hate that people have for the 6.5 Creedmoor, and he doesn't understand why. And when we were discussing it, I figured our discussion would make a really good video. People either really love the 6.5 Creedmoor because it is ballistically superior to so many other cartridges out there on the market. But then there's people that absolutely hate it because it's ballistically superior to whatever it is that they absolutely love with all their heart and soul. Like a lot of your 308 people hate the 6.5 Creedmoor because of its ballistic superiority over the 308. It just doesn't drop as much. It's not altered by the wind as much. It delivers plenty of power downrange to be able to handle most of what you're dealing with, especially if your prey is on two legs, or if you're in North America. Like here in North America, you should be able to handle whatever it is that you want to handle with a 6.5 Creedmoor, especially with proper shot placement, which is a lot easier to do at a long distance, especially on windy plains or wherever it is that you're shooting, than it would be with a 308. Now, if you're really good with a 308, by all means, you absolutely can make your hits on target. But 6.5 Creedmoor is like taking long-range shooting and taking the difficulty from like hard and dumbing it down to easy. Anyone who's ever shot a 6.5 Creedmoor knows just how stupid laser accurate those things are. And while I was over here playing around with my 6.5 Jap and 6.5 Carcano, these do not have the laser accuracy of the 6.5 Creedmoor. They just don't have the ballistic capabilities, and they do drop pretty significantly, especially in comparison to that 6.5 Creedmoor. And people hate it because it's so much better at what it does, but they also love it because it's so much better at what it does. It all depends on what it is that the person has previously fallen in love with. Like, some people are just so sentimentally attached to one piece of equipment or another. Like your 1911 guys, they will swear up, down, left, right that the 1911 is the absolute epitome of handgun technology. And the better technology is just not necessary because they can handle what they need to handle with the 1911. But this other technology does the same thing, just better. It holds more ammunition, it's lighter weight, better ergonomics. Like, there's a lot of things that are done better with better technology. And I mean, you can do it with the older technology like the 1911, just like you can hit out to really long distances with a 308. 6.5 Creedmoor and modern handguns and better technology nowadays just does these things better. The 6.5 Creedmoor has such a better ballistic coefficient in those bullets going down range, and it's so much less affected by wind and whatnot than like your 30 caliber diameter bullets are. It is absolutely astonishing. I've compared them side by side, and if you're shooting a 308 out at 500 yards and you're shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor out at 500 yards, and you're shooting across a plain that has some wind on it, like my very open cow field here does, then guess what? You're going to very clearly notice the difference in how much wind affects your bullets. I mean, 308, you're shooting at your target, and your round is hitting, you know, 2 inches to the left, or 4 inches, or 6 inches, however much to the left. You try and compensate, the wind has changed, you miss your target again because now it's hitting to the right. Whereas the 6.5 Creedmoor, you just aim at the center, and the spread is going to be so much less because the wind is affecting it so much less out to long ranges. Now, in short ranges, it doesn't really matter. Especially, I'd say like out 500 yards and beyond is where the 6.5 Creedmoor really begins to show a difference between these other projectiles. But anywhere inside of 500 yards, then you don't really have too much of an issue. Now you start stepping out to 1,000 yards with 308 versus 6.5, and you start to really, really see a significant difference there. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about why people love and hate the 6.5 Creedmoor. They love it if it's the cartridge that they fall in love with because it just does things so well, and they hate it if they have already fallen in love with another cartridge which they think is just as good, but that's just because they're really good with it. Whenever you get yourself a modern shooter and you give them a 6.5 cartridge like this with the lack of recoil and the lack of noise and the ease of use and how easy it is to make hits out to really long ranges, and especially if you give them a light, short carbine like this Carcano right here, Carcano. Man, this right here is like my favorite rifle. This is such a nice little rifle to shoot. If it didn't shoot high, then this would, beyond all reasonable doubt, be my favorite carbine. I really want some more 6.5 Carcano ammo. I need to get me a set of reloading dice for it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what y'all's thoughts are down below, and if I called this correctly, because I'd like to think that I called it correctly. People, the reason why people hate / love the 6.5 Creedmoor, it's got such a cult following behind it, but at the same time it's got such a cult behind the hatred of it, if that makes any sense at all. And people are so far in the extreme one way or the other. They'll fight tooth and nail to tell people about how great it is, and they'll fight tooth and nail to tell people about how not great it is. There's definitely rounds out there that put more power downrange, more energy on target than the 6.5 Creedmoor, but the 6.5 Creedmoor just hits its target so well at extremely long range. It just does its job phenomenally well. And I don't think that the power difference, well, I think the power difference is negligible, considering that the 6.5 Creedmoor has enough power to handle whatever it is that you're needing to handle, unless you're going after something tremendously large. If you're hunting like exceptionally large game, then I would not recommend the 6.5 Creedmoor. But for most people, especially here in North America, you would have absolutely no problem handling whatever it is that you have to handle with a 6.5 Creedmoor, and you'd be able to do it really, really well. Whenever people start talking about having cartridges that are much more powerful than, 6.5 Creedmoor, because they want something that has a lot more stopping power, the things that you're hunting around here, the things that you're using that stopping power for, it's just like excess amounts of power. Like I hit a deer down here with a 30-06 once, and the 30-06 was a 180 grain soft point, right? That's a very powerful cartridge, and the deer was probably about 120 pounds. And whenever I hit it, I blew a grapefruit-sized hole into that thing, and I mean, it was dead immediately. It dropped like a rock. But I blew this massive hole into this thing, and there was a lot of wasted meat that was basically turned into... You ever like shoot a watermelon and then pick up the watermelon and it's basically like a mush? That's exactly what this meat had turned into. So if you're going after bigger stuff, then yeah, I absolutely see wanting something more powerful than a 6.5, but 6.5 is powerful enough to handle most of everything. And if you want to go after something small using rounds that are too powerful for what it is that you're wanting to do, then yeah, I don't recommend that. At that point, you start wasting food, and that is never a good thing to do. Anyway, folks, like I said, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below. Description down below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check that out. And I am going to probably make another video because I'm having a really good time playing with my rifles here. Thank you, Kevin. Those who don't know who Kevin is, he's my peacock. I got 4 of them. They're all named Kevin. They're very loud, noisy birds. I need more. I have, but I need. I'm gonna go find me some reloading dice, actually. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Thanks for watching.
while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.